Hey everybody, Shoebox Legends. Thanks for joining me today. This is the 58th video in the brief history of my YouTube channel, and because of that, I thought it was the most appropriate time to show off some vintage baseball here and a pretty significant project that I completed. This was one of the first kind of small little side projects that I actually completed when I first returned to collecting as an adult, and I'm really happy to be able to show it today. If you haven't been able to guess from the hints about the episode number and the card that's displayed there in front of you, the stack of slabs that you see sitting there represents the very first Topps All-Star subset, which was, of course, included in the 1958 Topps baseball release. So in the earlier 50s all the way up through the 57 release, if you were a subject in a Topps set, a flagship set, you got one card, it was your base card, and that was it. And in this 1958 release, somebody came up with the genius idea of printing, a second card for all of the All-Stars. And, that concept was obviously very successful and, was well received in the collecting community and with kids everywhere. And so Topps stuck with that, all the way through the remainder of the 50s, 60s, 70s, every decade, right up till the present day. And in fact, it's very difficult to imagine how they could even release an update set nowadays without dozens of All-Star subjects jammed in there. So if you're somebody who is bothered by the many, many All-Star cards in the modern day update sets, I guess you have this set to thank for that, so to speak. But I look at this as a positive. These are absolutely beautiful cards. And, up until Topps kind of mangled the All-Star stuff in recent years, when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, you loved pulling those All-Star cards out of a pack. And of course, it all started here with these 58s. So I'm going to move this stack out of the way and we'll take a look at these one at a time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on any one card here. We have 21 to get through, and I don't want this to turn into a 30-minute long video. You probably know who each and every one of these players is anyway. If you know anything about vintage baseball or the history of the game, these are household names that are in most cases Hall of Famers and certainly very recognizable to anybody. So I'm not going to give you statistical breakdowns of their careers or anything like that. We'll just quickly look at these. The first card in the subset is the All-Star Managers card. So we have Casey Stengel of the Yankees and Fred Haney of the Braves. This is the only card to feature two subjects, and it is the only card that uses a landscape layout as well. But you do get an idea for the design here. Other than being landscape, where the others are portrait, it's very true to the design for the subset. They all use the same layout with the subjects kind of placed on a starry background with a primary color used, the Sport Magazine logo, and then a simple banner across the bottom with player name, position, and league as well, in the case of the other cards. This first one is actually a checklist back for the sixth and final series in the 58 Topps set. And what's cool about it is it contains a small checklist here at the bottom that covers the exact 21 All-Star cards that we will be looking at today. So it's kind of a nice header card for the set. And of course, love me some Casey Stengel. Actually just featured him in an episode the other day. So happy to have that one. And let's take a look now at the individual subjects. So first out of the gate after the header card, we have Stan Musial of the St. Louis Cardinals, one of the best hitters to ever swing a bat. And this one's really neat because if you know a lot about Musial or you collect vintage baseball, then you may be aware that he does not have a lot of playing era cards that were produced by Topps. Whether it was from, him playing some of his career during years when there really just weren't baseball cards produced, or at least not a lot of cards produced. And then, for a while, he also had, I think, some licensing or contractual things that kept Topps from creating cards of him in their sets. So there's only a handful of career-issued Topps cards of Stan the Man. And so this is one of the nicer ones, and happy to have that one. Following that, we have Moose Gowerin of the Yankees. So one of the non-Hall of Famers on the checklist. The majority of the guys in this subset are in Cooperstown. He is not, but of course, a very successful career and a well-known player and a great nickname as well. Next up, we have another guy who is not enshrined, Johnny Temple of the Cincinnati Reds. And this would be an opportune time to point out what you've probably already put together or you may have already known prior to watching this. But these are color-coded, so all of the blue background cards are the National League stars, and the red background cards are the American League stars. So just a little tidbit there. I love both colors. I think they both look fantastic. And this was just a really well done set by Topps. Here's Nelly Fox of the AL. All of my cards for this collection are in a PSA 6 with no qualifiers. I do have to say I picked these up when I was first kind of feeling my way around and figuring out how to be an adult collector of graded cards. And I did buy these in a time where I focused more on the grade on the slab than the actual card in some cases. And so there are a couple of these that are a little bit off-center that I'd actually like to replace with even a lower grade, better centered copy someday, but I'm in no rush to do it. And I kind of like the fact that I accumulated these all at the same time and still have them, 10 years later or more. And side note, that is one heck of a four-head that we are seeing here from Nelly. That I would almost call that a five-head. I mean the man no disrespect, but that is a tremendous four-head on that card. Here's Eddie Matthews next. Of course, sporting the NL blue. And this one is one that I would absolutely never need to upgrade. This is in tremendous shape for a PSA 6. Love the centering. Just a great card. So, significant one there. Next up, we have one for my hometown Red Sox, Frank Malzone, sporting a nice smile there. Following him, we go back to the NL. If you haven't noticed, these basically alternate back and forth between AL and NL, which makes them look pretty cool when you lay them all out together. And this one is significant because not only is it just an awesome Ernie Banks card, but he was the 1958 National League MVP. So in addition to this being his first All-Star card, it was released during a season for which he won MVP honors, which makes that even a little bit cooler in my eyes. Next up, we have Luis Saporizio. Nice crouch position there, ready to field the ball or throw the ball. So a little bit different where a lot of these other ones are just facial portraits. His photograph is kind of unique. Next up, Frank Robinson. Look at that smile. Love it. Here's a really great card for a Red Sox fan like myself, and this is sadly one of the more off-centered examples of what I have, but it's still a fantastic card. The Splendid Splinter, Ted Williams. You can't go wrong with any Ted Williams card from the 1950s, especially for a Red Sox collector. So happy to have reeled that one in. A guy who's just as talented and one of the absolute greatest all-around baseball players ever, Willie Mays, the Say Hey Kid. So don't have a ton of Willie stuff from the 50s, so he still has a few cards on my target list for sure, which maybe I'll get to someday, but do love this one. The card from the set that I was maybe most excited to pick up when I first started collecting these, Mickey Mantle. So for a long time, this was my only career era Mantle card from Topps, and it's still one of my favorites, although I have picked up a handful of others that I'll be showing on the channel at some point. I do have a lifelong goal of collecting all of Mantle's base, Topps, and Bowman sets between 1953 and his final Topps card in 1969. Not including all-star cards like this, I really just want the base. That totals about 17 cards. So that's going to be a challenge and certainly a long ways from getting there, but it's nice to have this one for this project anyway, and just an absolute beaut. In fact, I'm going to leave that one up back here. And following the Mick, we have another one of my favorite players of all time, Hank Aaron. The true, in my estimation, home run king. I've softened on Barry Bonds over the years, and I don't really have any hatred for him or despise him or anything like that. I actually do think he maybe belongs in the Hall, if not with a small asterisk next to his name. But despite all that, in my mind, this is the true home run king. I showed his rookie card in the very first video that I shot. Love collecting Hank, and happy to have this one. Next up, we swing back to the AL, and we have Jackie Jensen. Very nicely centered copy here. And small random barroom trivia fact, he was the American League MVP in 1958. So probably not who you would have guessed if you weren't aware of that, but pretty cool to have this one, and especially to be able to pair it with the Banks and have both of the MVPs from this year covered in this subset. Next up, we have one of the cheaper and easier cards to acquire on the checklist, Ed Bailey. And we have Sherman Lawler, who was definitely an underrated star in his day, and on a side note, has some pretty fantastic baseball cards. He seems to be one of those players who, for whatever reason, just got really great or memorable photographs on quite a bit of his cardboard, so I always remember that whenever I run into a Lawler card. We have next Bob Friend of the Pirates. Bullet Bob Turley for the Yankees. It's great that he is included because in addition to the two MVPs that we talked about, he was your Cy Young Award winner for Major League Baseball in 1958. And of course, that was back at a time when just a single Cy Young winner was selected for the entirety of Major League Baseball. So he was the guy. And as such, I'm really glad that he was included in this set. And we have the last NL card is the great Warren Spahn, one of the best southpaws ever to take the mound and throw a pitch in the majors. And a really, really nice looking card there. And then the final card on the All-Star subset checklist and the final card in the 1958 set period is Herb Score of the Baltimore Orioles. So that is it. Those are the very first 21 All-Star cards ever produced by Topps. And as I said earlier, if you despise the amount of All-Star cards that exist in the modern update set, you can trace that all the way back to these, and I guess you can lay your blame here. But otherwise, I think these are really, really beautiful. They're really iconic in the history of our hobby. They started a significant trend in Topps baseball cards that, went on to last, more than 50 years here, 60 years here. And so for that reason, I think every great vintage baseball card collection should have at least one of these. And I'm very grateful that I've been able to accumulate them all and to share them all with you here on the channel. So I hope you enjoyed this. It was certainly a very special set for me to collect, and I hope you enjoyed looking at them. If you have any comments on these or All-Star cards in general, definitely leave a note below. I always love to hear from you, and I respond to each and every comment. And if not, I hope you're enjoying collecting, and I will be back soon with more content. Take care.